So despite the price of coffee going through the roof recently, I find myself as hopelessly addicted to caffeine as ever, and as such, am always looking to get the most bang for my buck, while also trying to keep the quality of cup as high as possible. This is essentially why I first took to using a burr grinder as opposed to one of those blender types. The idea here being that when you're able to control the grind size, then as the coffee gets a little older, you can simply adjust the burrs to grind a little finer, which then allows you to somewhat increase your level of extraction, and in doing so, get a little more life out of the coffee. And who knows, maybe even hit a few of those tasting notes on the bag again. Now, the burr grinders can be a bit expensive, and I've had a few bad experiences when trying to get one of these online for cheap, which is why I was so excited to find what seems to be this fairly premium, yet entry-level priced hand grinder from MAVO. So I promptly reached out to ask if they would ship me one to review, and they said yes. So they sent one over, I started digging in, and I got some pretty interesting results. But before we get into the specifics, please consider hitting that like button or subscribing, but not if you have a money allergy. I know there are probably a few people out there allergic to money who absolutely hate this channel. So if your seasonal money allergies are beginning to flare up and you couldn't bear the idea of saving a few dollars, do not, I repeat, do not hit that subscribe. Okay, let's get right into it with a quick unboxing. So after removing this protective wrapping, you'll find this very premium-looking travel case within which the product is firmly secured inside a styrofoam backing. Full disclosure, I do intend to use this while glamping, so this is actually quite a nice feature for me.
It's a nice bribe.
So this handle here secures onto the top of the unit once you've got your beans in there to kind of lock everything together before you get to grinding. And after putting it together, I gotta say, this thing feels like it's been machined very well. I mean, just listen to those threads. So aside from the handle and the body, the unit also comes with a second set of burrs, which is the coarser of the two. So if you're buying this for an espresso setup, where you'll be going for a finer grind, then you're in luck. But as I'm more of a pour-over guy, I'll actually be swapping out the finer ones for this other burr set. And one more really premium feature that you notice right away is the adjustment controls on the bottom here. If you look closely, you can see where they indicate which way to turn the unit to get a coarser or finer grind. And like many of the hand grinders out there, these numbers that you see are like relative references as opposed to fixed points. When you actually go to adjust your grind, you'll get the handle on there, and then hold it in place as you rotate the adjustment to get it all the way to the finest setting. Once you feel the burrs touching each other, you can increase your grind size to however much you want before actually cranking some coffee through. Just be sure not to try and turn the handle when you have it absolutely locked down to the finest setting. Unless, of course, you're going for some subtle notes of ground metal shavings in your cup.
That's naughty and wrong. Stop it.
So now that we've gotten through the unboxing and some basic functionality, let's talk about how this measures up against my current setup in three main areas: practicality, retention, and grind consistency. Okay, first up is practicality. So you do have to actually grind this unit by hand, but for me that's not a huge issue as, like I mentioned before, I'm primarily doing pour-overs. So while I wait 3 to 4 minutes for my gooseneck kettle to get up to temp, I tend to have more than enough time to weigh out and grind 20 to 30 grams of beans. Also, given that I'm brewing for filter coffee, I'm typically grinding on a much coarser setting than if I was using a portafilter or something, so in that regard, it's a little less work as well. So with practicality going to the MAVO, let's take a look at every specialty coffee aficionado's favorite pet peeve: grinder retention. This has been a real issue for me with my current setup, as it seems that every time I go to place the lid back on top of the hopper, I'm rewarded with an additional couple grams of coffee from yesterday's grind. To measure this on the MAVO, I've weighed in and out a couple different brews here, and I'm not really getting anywhere near even a gram of retention. So definitely much better than my current setup in this regard. Oh, and from what I understand, you can also just lightly spritz your beans right before grinding to greatly reduce retention. But if we're being honest, I'm not sure I'm emotionally ready to spritz my beans like a houseplant. Bruh. So with retention out of the way, let's take a look at grind consistency, and from what I can tell, the MAVO again is a big improvement over what I was using. I've laid out a few side-by-sides of various grind settings between the MAVO and my electric, and as I break these up a bit here to get a little better look, while they both do finer grinds pretty well, you begin to see how the MAVO really stands out with much greater uniformity when you start grinding on some of the more coarser settings, really allowing it to show off its grind consistency. So who is this grinder for? Well, if you're someone like me that doesn't mind spending a couple dollars on your home brew, but also wants to make sure that they can dial in that grind size and get a few more weeks out of their coffee, then I'd say this purchase is a no-brainer. And if you check all those boxes and enjoy confusing your friends by grinding up some single origins next to the campfire, then this one's definitely calling your name.
We're in the woods. Who's weighing water in the woods?
So that's it for this one. And if you've made it this far, please consider hitting that like button or subscribing, as it really helps out the channel. The product link is in the description. And hopefully I'll see you next time. Thanks.